Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is your Earthmaster back here on this Wednesday night, the last day of May here. May 31st, 2023. Got June tomorrow. 11:17 p.m. here along the west coast. The latest earthquake activity shows a 1.9 here into the area of Northern California. Starting off here, though, with space weather activity. Kind of ramping up here on a sunspot here that we're watching and monitoring around the eastern side of the sun, about center disk here of the sun, showing some increasing activity out here. Far as some flaring goes, it did produce a long duration M flare earlier this evening. Notice it peaking out here at about a 4.2 on the M flare category, and the width here of the duration was pretty lengthy. Since then, things have kind of calmed down slightly from that sunspot, but continuing to watch that. It is currently named 3323. That sounds like a beautiful named sunspot, right? 3323. And that is looking fairly complex here on the structure. Notice quite a bit here of intermixing of the polarity of the magnetic structure here within the sunspot cores. Continuing to watch that pretty closely. Also over here on the southwestern limb, things are advancing pretty quickly with this sunspot region here as well, although this will be turning away from us here in the coming hours and days. Right now, 99% chance for a C flare, M flare 40% chance, X flare around 10% chance, with an elevated proton event there around 10% chance as well. We are looking at possibly a little bit of elevated conditions here on the June 2nd time period due to a coronal hole that's been facing us there for the past day or so. Continue to watch that. But for now, things are somewhat minimal across the polar regions there for the auroras. But definitely watch this sunspot. It's looking it's definitely looking pretty awesome out here on the UV filter, as you can see it flaring slightly across the eastern limb of the sun. Alright, what do we have here for earthquake activity across the west coast? Zooming in here to Northern California, right here where I'm at currently, but who knows for how long. This may be my home state, but not for long. Out here around the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, some activity occurring here. We did have a 3.9 well off the coast of Northern California earlier this afternoon, right after my update. Literally right as I finished my update earlier today, that came in to the Northern California area, well offshore, right on the ridge here of the Pacific plate here to the south and the Gorda plate up to the north. Tremor activity. Let's go ahead and check out the Cascadia tremor here tonight. See what we have. 307 epicenters of tremor here along the Cascadia subduction zone that could be contributing to the activity we're seeing there in Northern California. It's been somewhat elevated. It has peaked over the previous event back in April. Still kind of watching this, seeing if it plays out into a major event or not. Further down south into the Southern California, well, Central California area, things are very quiet here about the Bay Area southward. Into Southern California, things somewhat minimal. Over here around the Moreno Valley area, getting a little swarming activity here in the last hour or so, with a couple ones kicking up here around the San Bernardino and the Riverside area. Well, that looks like the county line, so to speak, or at least a road. I'm not for sure. But south here of Loma Linda, it looks like it's just off of the San Jacinto fault zone. A little bit of activity kicking up here in the last hour. That's actually a pretty good amount of earthquake activity here in the short amount of time that's being reported. So I'm kind of watching that. Here along the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, somewhat elevated activity here northwest of the Desert Hot Springs area. This is right smack dab on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, north of the Salton Sea area. So again, a little bit of heightened movement here across the southern area of California, up into the Wyoming area. We got one earthquake here, 2.3, just after midnight early this morning. I do want to double check that, see what we have going on here across the Yellowstone area. And I see that 2.3, definitely well close to the 24-hour map up here. But far as earthquake activity goes, it's pretty quiet. They did have some thunderstorms, of course, roll through the area earlier. No seismic activity that I'm noting here across the area currently. The rest of the country, minor activity across Texas and Oklahoma. One small earthquake out here in the New Madrid seismic zone. Aside from that, what do we have going on out here as far as major movement goes? Let's take a look at the globe. A couple fives up here across the Papua New Guinea area, it looks like. That's newer earthquake activity. Some deeper movement here across New Zealand. A couple threes coming in. Let's go ahead and check out New Zealand here real quick and see what's being reported here, folks. Go over here to the all magnitudes event. I don't think there's anything major going on, but just definitely want to cover the New Zealand area, just due to the fact that it is within the seismically hazardous zone there along the plate boundary, and it should be catching up here as far as large-scale activity goes soon. Right now, things very minimal, folks. Nothing that I would even catch my eye on. An earthquake here or there. That could be some of the activity further up north, but for the most part, this looks very quiet across the New Zealand area currently. Up here across the Tonga Trench, a little bit of activity from earlier, it looks like, early this morning, almost 560 kilometers deep for a 4.5. The latest earthquake, though, shows a 4.9, 10 kilometers deep here on the northern edge here of the Solomon Sea outside of Papua New Guinea area. Slightened? Is that a word? Slightened. Slight activity increase there across this plate boundary. Over here across the Indonesia region, 5.2 coming in earlier this afternoon. That's going to be some movement here across this area, somewhat deep. As far as any large-scale activity up north, not really seeing it. Things very minimal here across the Filipino plate and the Kuril Kamchatka Trench up here north. Very quiet activity. We got one earthquake there from early this morning, though, at 5.5. But goodness, you know, it's how long can it go without producing a major earthquake? This is very quiet activity across the northwestern edge of the Pacific Plate. As far as the rest of the world goes, let's go ahead and check this out. Some movement across the eastern edge, or let's see what we got here. Western edge here of China. Some movement across the Turkey area, showing up there on the globe. But things very quiet, though, for the most part. Only some twos and threes out here. No major large-scale activity. The Atlantic Ocean, fairly quiet. I would say our hot spot of earthquake activity today, so far, in the last few hours, is the South America region, with quite a few twos and threes, and even some fours kicking up here across the areas of the northern edge here, around the Peru area. Nothing, absolutely nothing showing up here across the USGS map, but don't let that fool you. There's some threes and fours being reported here by the EMSC, as you can see here on the map. So I'm not for sure what's going on. Maybe an extended break there on the USGS part, but we know there's earthquake activity occurring up here across the region. The Big Island of Hawaii. Let's see what's going on here. This has kind of been a hot spot of earthquake activity here recently. Today, 60 earthquakes. That's according to the USGS. Let's go ahead and check out the volcano hazards here across the area of the map. I just want to double check. You know, sometimes we have to double check our officials, or at least the people that are getting paid by the public, and make sure they're doing their job right. They get paid by the public. That means they need to be doing their job properly. So I'm here to back that up. Seismograph stations here over the past 12 hours at Kilauea Volcano shows, well, obviously elevated earthquake activity still. I'm not seeing any harmonic tremor or any magma movement, but still definitely showing some elevated earthquake activity there across the Kilauea Volcano area. The latest informational statement there from the USGS in regards to Kilauea Volcano. We checked this out earlier. Check this out again. Currently not erupting, okay? So that means things are still kicking up. Elevated earthquake activity, elevated tilt, inflationary tilt. But so far, no eruption there at the Kilauea Volcano. But it's getting closer and closer, folks. Let me tell you, it is. Across Alaska, a little bit of activity well north here, northern region. I was back here a few years ago, exploring some earthquake, or not earthquake activity, but I was trying to see the auroras back here. That flew up here into Anchorage and traveled these back roads to Fairbanks, and it was an absolutely beautiful sight. I'm a big nature fan, and I'm more of a nature fan than I am a city fan. So getting away from Anchorage was absolutely beautiful. Less people, more scenery, more nature, 100% better in my book. I didn't quite make it further outside of the Fairbanks area, but I do want to get back up here and see what the Brooks Range area looks like here. And I would love to travel up well north here into the North Slope area. Not even joking. I'll push my limits one of these days, but I'm not for sure when I'll get back up there. But earthquake activity at 3.6 well west here of the Brook Range, and it looks like about 9 kilometers deep or so. Absolutely a big fan of desolate. Well, I can't really say desolate because it's absolutely beautiful and stunning up there to my knowledge and my perspective. A lot of people think this is boring up here. You got mountains and nothing, right? But your perspective, it's very subjective, right? There's a couple different words in there. Subjective opinion. I see this as an absolutely beautiful area to travel around. That's just my 2 cents and my subjective opinion. A lot of folks don't agree with it. They'd prefer the big city of Anchorage with all the traffic and the horns honking and the buildings and all that. Yeah. Zzz. Let's cut that out. All right, let's go into, let's see what we got out here. Are we missing anything? Let's look at this here real quick. Kind of got me off track there. Just talking about nature and stuff like that. I'm just having one of those moments, folks. You know, where you're kind of thinking about serenity, peace of mind, right? Peace of mind. What would you consider your peace of mind? Would it be a large city full of buildings that you can shop in? And maybe you can find your favorite clothes, your favorite perfume, and yeah, and you're happy. But to me, my perspective out here is quietness, peace of mind, less people, the slow life, so to speak. I was looking at Nebraska here. In Nebraska, we got any viewers out here in Nebraska? Let me. Are we live streaming right now? Let me double check here. Nebraska viewers. What do we got there? Somebody said, Susan L. It really is beautiful, but. What is that to? Not for sure what that is. Okay, so Philip Mint, your question there. Last eruption was back in January, and it's been erupting prior to that past couple years. So it's been off and on there, Philip Mint. far as eruptive status there at Kilauea Volcano. All right. Woo! 28 viewers up in here. Yeah, so Kilauea has been one of those volcanoes here across the Big Island that's been somewhat elevated here over the past few years. It's got a very active history. Very, very active. And it doesn't create explosive eruptions such as, you know, like Mount St. Helens or Krakatoa. These are just spewing up out of the ground. And obviously, it's going to happen. It's one of those things. I can already see it with the earthquake activity and the inflationary tilt. It's a matter of time, folks. I said 3 weeks. I think we're under 2 weeks now. All right. Let's move on here. Weather activity, very minimal out here over the next few days or so. Looks like, for the most part, around Texas, spewing up into Oklahoma or so. We're really not looking at any major elevated severe weather events, folks. So, kind of just keep an eye on that. Again, space weather, things are active. They're somewhat elevated here with this regional sunspot. Looks like it's currently flaring right now. Notice that brightness here across the goodness. All right, southeastern limb of the sun. Ooh, it's been one of those days, let me tell you. I've been out in the pool too long. The heat and the sun, it's been cooking my brain cells. So yeah, we're flaring slightly from that eastern edge here of the sunspot, which is currently named, I forgot it, 3323. That's right. And that does harbor some potential there for some stronger flares, folks. So we'll continue to watch that as we head throughout the hours and overnight regions. Shows 3323 is a beta class. I doubt that. There's a little bit more complex structure in that sunspot than what's being produced, or at least shown here on this chart. All right, I think I better get out of here, folks. But I do have a question. I do have a very important question out here. And I kind of asked that here just a minute ago. If you guys were to choose, okay, I have a question for the folks out here. I'm not talking about California, Florida, New York, Seattle. I'm talking about 2 states here of interest. And this is not in geology perspective, but your thoughts here on 2 states, Nebraska and Kansas. If you guys had to choose, okay, I would love to see the comments here below. Just between these 2, I know a lot of people have their own perspective in life and their peace of mind, right? A lot of people like to be around a lot of people. And I'm not one of those people that like to be around a lot of people. I like my peace of mind. But what would you choose, folks, in your quality of living if you were to raise a family? Nebraska or Kansas? One of these 2 states here, folks. Which one would you choose? And tell me why. I'm looking at Kansas and Nebraska for some relocation issues. Relocation potentials, I should say. I absolutely love Texas as well. That is on my list. But between these 2 states right now, Nebraska and Kansas, what would you guys prefer? You know, a lot of people don't like the solitude. They don't like seeing nothing. You can drive for miles and miles and see only farmland, and it depresses people. Some people are like that, but I am not one of those people. I want to know, though, and give me your opinion, Nebraska or Kansas, folks. Tell me why, and your thoughts on both of these states here, because it is in my potential future very soon, as far as relocation goes. I'm not concerned about weather. It doesn't bother me. Weather is my thing, and I prefer weather over malls and cities and stuff like that. That's just not my deal. I'd rather see a tornado brewing out here on the landscape than a skyscraper. All right. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later tomorrow. Have a good night. Peace out.